Good morning, everyone, and thank you for returning. We are going to talk about that very important topic that you have been hearing about this morning as we've gone through some of the other initiatives. I'm here with my esteemed colleagues, and they have their names up there so you can see them. Angel, Loris, Deanne, Marion, Jeff, Robert, and Arlene. Thank you so much for being here to share on this topic. Assembly Bill 705 was signed into law by Governor Brown in October of 2017, authored by Assemblymember Jackie Irwin of Thousand Oaks. The bill modified the Seymour Campbell Student Success Act of 2012, which was also modified in 2014 by the Student Success and Support Act. Assembly Bill 705 will have a significant impact on how students are placed in English, math, and ESL courses. In addition, this bill will impact how students complete transfer-level English, transfer-level math, and ESL courses. This bill codifies the use of high school transcript data as a student success indicator to ensure that California is enabling its students to graduate faster and increase the likelihood of their success. There are other states, such as Connecticut and North Carolina, who have implemented multiple measures in their program and is finding great success in the use of this program. As Dr. Rockmore mentioned earlier, Guided Pathways Initiative and AB 705 will help shape how California's community colleges, including IVC, will serve its students moving forward. And our faculty and administrators and many of our classified professionals have been working very hard on trying to understand what this initiative requires. And we've been working on it for many years now, 3 years or more to be exact. We started a lot of work under our SAMO Strategic Planning Committee. And there's one person here who is not on the panel, but I'm sure she would be if she hadn't retired, who led a lot of the initial dialogue for looking at the English placement assessments, and that's Professor Brenda Warren. So we also have to give Brenda acknowledgement on her work here. But now, did the Chancellor come in? Don't see her yet? Still drinking coffee? Okay, so I won't acknowledge her yet. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to my esteemed colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fontanella, for that introduction. So my name is Angel Hernandez. I'm a counselor and basic skills coordinator. Just to give you an overview of what we're going to be doing in the panel. So for the first portion, I'll talk about AB 705, provide a snapshot of really what the law is telling us. Then we'll look at some data of really why we need AB 705. Loris will talk about some of the success we've had as we get ready to implement here, since, as Dr. Fontanella mentioned, this is something we've been working on for a couple years. Then our discipline faculty will talk about specifically what are the changes they're making in their curriculum and have been making in order to better support our students to get to their goal as well. Robert's going to talk about how that also impacts counseling. Then Arlene will provide an overview of how 705 impacts the overall matriculation process, to give you a snapshot of what we're doing here. So to provide you with an overview, and we could look at the policy and talk about that for an hour. Don't worry, we're not going to do that. But if I'm giving you a brief snapshot of the main points of 705, which you see here, the main points that we're looking at is, and really think about as we're saying this, as long as we've all been community college educators, 705 is a significant change to how we operate on a daily basis, right? So keep that in mind. But centrally maximizing the probability that students will complete English and math in 1 year. What 705 tells us is that we have to have that in place by fall 19. In other words, at this point next year. When we're looking at ESL, maximizing the probability that students complete transfer level English in 3 years, right? We know the needs of a native speaker versus a student as an English as a second language student are different. So the state has given us till fall 2020 for that, okay? Another key change here that you see in that third bullet is mandates that community colleges can no longer require assessment exams. That's a big change. Why that change? We're going to talk about that. Just to give you a little snapshot of why that is, when we look at long term, there has been a lot of research done around high school grade point average being more of a predictor of student success in college courses as opposed to how they do on one test. So that's really why that main shift. In addition to that, and again, another big change for how we operate as community colleges is we will no longer be able to require students to take remedial classes, meaning below transfer level classes. Does that mean that we will no longer offer below transfer level classes? No, we'll still have some of those sections of below transfer for students that might self-select into that, but in general, 705 provides students a right to go directly into transfer. Now, as an educator, you start thinking about, okay, you look at our developmental English and math sequences. Well, we usually have prerequisite courses that provide students the content they need in order to be successful in that transfer level. What happens to that content? One of the key shifts that we see in this last bullet is that colleges can require students to take additional concurrent support during the same semester that they're taking their transfer level English and math. Right? So what, in our discipline faculty will talk about this a little bit more, but really what 705 is also challenging us to do is to really look at that below transfer curriculum and really drill down to what are the skills that a student needs in order to be successful at transfer level and really examine how that can be offered to the student at the same time they're in the transfer level course. So snapshot, we'll get into the different areas as we go through the presentation. Now, the need for 705, we're going to look at the statewide and then we're going to drill down a little bit more into some IVC specific data. So when we're looking at the student success card, when we're looking at students that actually complete or reach their actual goal that they came to the community college to achieve, and keep this in mind with what we talked about earlier with the new funding formula. So with the data that's available at the state level, of those that came in college prepared, so at transfer level, 70% of them reach their respective goal. Of the students that we classify as underprepared, i.e. needing below transfer level coursework, only 40% of them complete their transfer level course, complete their respective ed goal, excuse me. When we combine that, only about half of our students that come to the community college, which we highlight as educators in California as a key point to access, only about half of them complete the goal that they came to us to complete. Those numbers are staggering when we're looking at that statewide. When we drill down, we know how critical the first year is for these students. 3/4 of our first year students come in as underprepared. All right, so we got to think about that. In terms of in our current system, these are the numbers we're seeing, right? And I know for us that, we've all been educators in this room for a while. We know that this is what our students are coming to us with. Well then, how do they do once they're here? When we're looking at the scorecard in terms of students and how many of them complete their transfer level English and math courses, statewide, within 1 year on the math side, you see the numbers here, it's only about 18% that complete that transfer level math course within 1 year. Within 2 years, 30%. When we shift over to English, a little better, but still not ideal, right? 41% complete their English transfer level course in 1 year, and then you see close to 60% within 2 years, right? So that's what we're currently seeing. So for me as an educator, right away, it's, okay, how can we really close that achievement gap, right? We know that completing those transfer level English and math courses are not only key to getting a student to their transfer goal, but also for a student that's also simply looking at earning an associate degree, right? Those are key bottlenecks that we're looking at. That's a need. Let's look at this statewide, and really why are we really drilling down on English, ESL, and math? We talk about that curriculum really being basic skills. We know how foundational those are to being successful in the rest of your courses. So when we look at completion over 3 years, really looking at that placement is destiny for a lot of these students. Now, I know as educators, there's a lot that we can't control that happens outside of the college setting, but the experience and the curriculum that they go through here and how we support them is something that we shape on a daily basis. So to give you an idea of what those numbers look like in our current structure, students that start one level below, about half of them will complete their transfer level course in 1 year. 2 levels below, 34%, and 3 levels below, 19%, right? So you see the attrition here, the different exit points that were referenced earlier in the guided pathways presentation. This is the results we're producing under our current structure. Again, is that our intent? No, but when we're looking at 705, the need is to re-examine and think differently about how we're serving our students. Also, when we're looking at the implications of equity, across California, students of color are 2 to 3 times more likely to begin at levels lower than their white counterparts. Again, not something that we intended, but this is a challenge for us as educators to look at how we can better serve all of our students. Let's look at this information in the area of math. So similar numbers, if you will, when you look at that attrition, starting 1 level below transfer, 35% complete transfer level math in 3 years. 2 levels below, 15%, and 3 levels below, only 6%. Equity, as we've had the conversation around equity for the last couple years, really drilling down at our student population, across California, more than half of Black and Latino students are more likely to begin at 3 levels below. Significant changes that we have to do, right? And again, I want to be clear that when we're looking at this, the first time I saw this data was, well, I can't control how much study time a student's putting in. I can't control if a student's working 3 jobs, right? But the experience they have here, the curriculum they go through, and again, the supports they have is something that we all have a hand in, right? So this really is intended to highlight the need, but I also want to look at what are some of the successes that we've had here as IVC as what we'll call early adopters of looking to adopt the acceleration movement, if you will. With that said, I'm going to ask Loris to come up and share a little bit about the data we have locally.
So these are the effects that we've seen here at IVC since we've changed our assessment system, and as Angel said, this will now go away and even have a bigger effect. These are a lot of graphs, but I just want you to focus on the blue bars and the dotted line. The dotted line was where white students used to place into in our old system that was based purely and solely on tests. And the blue bars are after we've changed our assessment system. So you see that essentially almost all blue bars are now above that dotted line, meaning compared to historic rates, we have closed our achievement gap. Closing achievement gaps is one of the most challenging things to do, and we have done that with just changing our placement system. Now, this will continue that way because AB 705 has even taken a further step than what we've done. And I believe, I don't know if this is 100% accurate, but I think the work with this, when the state legislature saw results like this, they said, why don't we institute it? And I think AB 705 was, in large part, initiated through these results that many community colleges have done in changing their remediation, their course sequences, and the way they tested. One thing that was a shift for all of us to rethink, and you've heard this now quite a few times, I think it's part of guided pathways thinking, part of EASY, part of a lot of these things is we often are focused on the thing that we can control, and that's a good focus. But when you just take a step away and try to see the whole system, the numbers sometimes look different. what we've often done is we look at success rates within a course. So you see that students had a success rate of passing their 2 levels below math or English course with 70% success rate. And we thought we're doing a good job. Because we thought if we take the exact same student into a transfer level course and we drop them in there, they would only have a 30% success of passing the transfer level. So it makes more sense to place them 2 levels below than directly into the transfer level 1. So 30% is much lower than 70%. The problem is, if we shift our thinking to more of a throughput, how many students then, Angel has shown us these numbers, right? It's almost like compounding interest. You always look at the interest rate, but you forget about the compounding effect. There's a compounding effect of every single step here. And when you compare this, you actually realize that placing them directly into transfer level, even though the success rate might not look good at the face of it, is better, 150% in this case, better than if we had them placed at 2 levels below. And that's what AB 705 does. AB 705 holds us accountable for the throughput rate. So there is many different names for this, but I like the idea of throughput. And that's the idea and the concept we need to start being comfortable with from a program level, from a college level, is how many do actually make it through the whole sequence. And if you look the throughput rate, that's the standard that AB 705 holds us to now, is like how many make it through. Not what the success rate is in an individual course, but what is the end? When you look at the end, how many actually come out of the maze? And here is the effect of our throughput, and this will only increase because it takes a while for the system to change and for those numbers to actually show the true effect. In the gray bar, you see the English at the top and math at the bottom. Those were, before we changed our assessment systems, what the throughput rate was. And even though maybe this looks small in terms of percentages, from 59 to 66, that's a lot of students. That's hundreds of students that have gone and passed a transfer level English course or passed a math transfer level English course more than in our prior system. And these numbers will only go up from here.
Hi, I'm Deanna Scherger. I'm with the English department, so I just wanted to take a minute to tell you a little bit about how we've been implementing some of these things for AB 705 in English. At IVC, we've been really fortunate in having the Basic Skills Transformation Grant, which we were awarded a couple years ago. And some of the things that we designated in that grant as our goals were actually what the AB 705 requirements were before AB 705 was even here. So we've been really fortunate to be working on some of these things a little bit longer. So there are 2 main ways that AB 705 is going to impact English, and I'm going to talk about them really briefly and then mention some of the maybe ripple effects we might see across campus because of these changes. So the first is curriculum in the writing sequence, and then the second is placement into writing courses. So historically, when students have come into IVC, they've taken their assessment in English and been placed either into Writing 1, which is our transfer level course, or into 1 semester of remediation, or even a couple years ago, 2 semesters of remediation. And we know, based on some of the things that Angel and Laura's talked about, is that we lost a great deal of those students. So AB 705 mandates that students have access to transfer level courses. Now that doesn't mean we're just putting everyone in Writing 1, because we still are going to have students who need support. So what it does allow for is concurrent support. So we've developed a series of co-requisite courses to provide students with support. So not only will we have Writing 1, which has been our traditional course that we've had for many, many years, but now we'll also have Writing 1 with support. We've been offering this for about a year now at IVC as the co-rec fast track. So Writing 1 with support is actually 3 different courses. It's Writing 1, Writing 302, and Writing 181. Now, students actually enroll in 3 courses, but at the same time, these courses really work as one cohesive unit to help give them those strong writing skills that they're going to need for the rest of their academic careers and probably beyond that as well. So Writing 1 is just the same as what our standalone Writing 1 is. It's a regular transfer level writing course. It has the same standards, the same high level of college writing achievement that we want students to be able to do once they finish that course. Writing 302 is a 2-unit support course. So that course is actually taught by the same instructor instructor that teaches the Writing 1 course, so it's the same students in Writing 1 and in 302. And the assignments in that course are really meant to help support that Writing 1 course. So it's not different curriculum, it's support curriculum. And then in addition to that, students enroll in our Writing Center, which is a really valuable opportunity for them to get even further one-on-one support with our English instructors there. So rather than have Writing 201, which we've had historically as sort of one semester below, we're going to just have Writing 1 or Writing 1 with support. We are going to continue Writing 399, which has been our traditional accelerated support, but we're not going to be able to place students in that class, so I'm going to talk just a little bit more about placement. So more than likely, we're going to see our sections of 399 go much down. It's just going to be students who really feel like they want that extra semester of support. They can opt in. But by and large, to be in accordance with AB 705, most of our students are either going to be entering Writing 1 or Writing 1 with support, which is this co-requisite suite of classes. Oh, I went too far. There we go. So just to give you a sense of what our new writing sequence is going to look like, we've been working with marketing, and they've given us this wonderful sort of streamlined design of what students are going to be entering into. So that assessment process is no longer going to be a test. I'm going to talk more about that in just a second. But then they're going to go either into that Writing 1 with support or standalone Writing 1, and again, we have those 399 sections as an option. And those students who pass Writing 1 with support also get to go right on to Writing 2 because they are completing that college-level writing course. So this is going to be our new streamlined sequence. So we're going to be eliminating Writing 201, and again, Writing 399 is going to be much further scaled down than it is now. So then in terms of placement, in order to replace the assessment that students have been taking, we're going to be having a self-guided placement system. So students will come into IVC, they're not taking an English placement exam, they're not taking a test anymore, and they're going to receive a recommendation largely based on high school GPA. Right? So we've been talking about multiple measures at IVC, and we've been implementing some pilots, and really AB 705 mandates that we use high school GPA in terms of placement. So that's going to be a big part of how students receive their recommendation. Students will also still get ESL pathways, right? So if students do need that English language learning support, they are going to have an opportunity to get that as part of their assessment. And my ESL colleague, Jeff Wilson, is going to talk a little bit more about that. But as part of our new self-guided placement, we will still be trying to serve those ESL students as best we can. Right? So students are going to go through self-guided placement, and they're going to receive a recommendation rather than a required placement. So that's another big change. So the recommendation, again, will be largely based on high school GPA, but for those who don't have high school GPA, they're also going to receive a recommendation for Writing 1 with support. Ultimately, students will be able to choose which writing class they want to go in. So if they want to go in Writing 1 with support, that's wonderful. If they feel that they're ready for Writing 1, then they're going to have that opportunity as part of our compliance with AB 705. So finally, just a couple of things across campus that we might begin to consider sooner rather than later, because as Angel mentioned, fall 19 is the implementation date for us to be fully compliant with AB 705. The first one is that all incoming students are going to be now eligible for Writing 1. They'll be eligible for Writing 1 or Writing 1 with support. So again, it's not that we're trying to leave anybody behind. We definitely want to offer support for those students who are interested in it. Courses with Writing 201 or Writing 399 listed as prerequisites or recommendations, and there are a number of these outside of the English department, will most likely need to be revised, right? So those courses will no longer exist, or students won't be placed in those courses. So having them as a prerequisite will no longer be an option. And another thing to consider is that these co-requisite support courses often have students with a higher unit load front-loaded. So if students are taking the co-requisite Writing 1, they're going to have 6.5 units. And if they're taking a co-requisite math, which Miriam will talk a little bit more about, they're going to have a number of units for that as well. So they might have a semester where their schedule is pretty full with their English and math class. However, the thing to remember is that ultimately they're taking less units. So these are students that previously would have taken a 3-unit remedial class, right, or a 4-unit or even 5-unit. So ultimately they are taking less units, but there are going to be more units front-loaded in that first semester, and that's something for us to consider as we move forward with guided pathways as well. And I'm going to turn over to Miriam.
Short. Hi, my name is Miriam Castro-Conde from the Math Department. And you already heard everything that's coming our way. I'm going to try to speak slowly so my accent doesn't get in the way. Here are the major changes. We cannot require enrollment in a remedial course. Transfer level courses will need curricular support to help the students succeed. Those are the two main problems that the math department is going to handle. Why? Based on the enrollment data of this semester, 30% of the students enrolled in a math course are enrolled in a remedial course. That's about 1,600 students. If most of them need to be placed in a transfer level course next fall, and we decide that most is 80% of those students, that means that we have to accommodate approximately 1,200 students in addition to the 1,500 students that are enrolled in the 5 first-level transfer courses. This is a big change. We basically need to be planning on what are we going to do with the additional 1,200 students, how are we going to handle them. So of course, some of them are not going to be ready, so they are going to have to need co-requisite support. Okay. We have created, as the English department did, co-requisite courses, okay? And the co-requisite courses will be 2 units, as they are for English, but what that means is our 3, 4, and 5 unit courses will become 5, 6, and 7 units. Those will be causing problems, especially the 7-unit courses, because when we schedule them, they're going to be taught by the same instructor. They're going to be scheduled back to back. When we schedule these sections, we will be crossing scheduling blocks. So these students who this semester are taking math at 8:30 and chemistry at 11, if they are scheduled for a co-requisite section, they are not going to be able to take the chemistry at 11. So not only we are going to have to adapt our math department way of scheduling these courses, the enrollment in other courses might be affected outside the math department because students now will have limited sections where they can try to go if they have the units, because as Diana said, they might be taking up to 13.5 units, enjoying writing one with correct and the math fun of any of our courses with correct. So this is something that as a college we need to be aware. We have to know that that first semester is going to bring lots of changes, not only for math and English, but for the entire college. Maybe the plans we make for fall 19 are not going to be, okay, working. We are in the math department, we'll put together a plan of how to schedule these courses. We'll try to talk with all of the people involved, but our plan might not work because this is new. We don't know how the students are going to react. It will be number-based because we always do number-based, but you need to be aware. And most importantly, college-wide, we cannot take prerequisites for granted anymore. We cannot take prerequisites for granted. So we have to know these students will come going to transfer level. We have 5 courses, one for the STEM students. They have the easy way. They just have to take Math 124 trig. But for the non-STEM students, there are 4 courses they can choose. And they're going to have to work with the counselors very closely to decide, of these 4 options, which one is the best. Before, with our wonderful homegrown, custom-made assessment test, they were placed exactly, and we always had a great success. Our students tended to succeed and do much better and place higher with our placement test, but assessment is gone. So we are going to have a wonderful time experiencing the changes, all of us. Okay, so what are the frequently asked questions that we have? Will remedial courses be offered? Of course, we will have sections of our remedial courses. At the beginning, probably all of them, and eventually probably will eliminate to offer less. Don't ask me to commit to anything, I don't know. We'll play it by ear. But we will be keeping, for example, the pre-statistics course, Math 310, that we introduced several years ago, has been very successful. It has given the opportunity to students in different programs like the SPS, veteran services, to be able to take that course and then take their statistics and get that transfer level course done. We will keep that one going, definitely 253, intermediate algebra, because that's the requirement for a degree. And working, once we understand what's coming our way, we'll decide what to do with the other courses. So we will have that option, and we will keep it and decide for how long as needed. We will be placing students instead of using our wonderful, wonderful, homemade, tailor-made tests that place students higher. We will be using high school GPA, high school coursework. We already have been using the MMAP. We introduced that, when, Doris? Like 3-4 years ago, MMAP? 12-16, and it's working very well. We are happy that we did that. It has been good for the students. So we are going to be using the MMAP, high school coursework, high school GPA, to place the students. And I will take the opportunity to thank Loris and Vin, and DJ and Angel for taking the time to meet over and over and answer the 10,000 and hundreds and hundreds more questions, so that we have now in place a placement process that we're confident is going to work, but who knows? But we think it will, okay? Because remember, guys, this is new territory. We really are doing our best. We are addressing the needs of counseling, the needs of registration, advice from the Office of Research, and these guys are so patient. I go, I need this, and they give it to me. What about this? And they figure it out. So we are really doing our best. I want you to know that we are really very lucky to have this wonderful team. And now we have eliminated the math assessment test, but we are going to call it the math challenge test. That will be, because it's so good, homegrown. I mean, it's fantastic. So we are going to call it the math challenge test. So students that get placed through whatever process we have and tweak and whatever to be able to be in compliance with AB 705, if they feel, no, this is not what I'm happy. I'm not happy. I think I could do better. They can go and take our wonderful test, try to improve their placement, because a lot of students place higher with that test. And we think it's going to be, a good option for us to keep alive, okay? So I think I'm done. Final words. No, I have more words. If your program, and this is something that please take back to your school meetings, because not everybody here, is here that needs to hear this recommendation, as Diana said. If you have courses in your programs with either beginning or intermediate algebra, Math 353, Math 253 as prerequisites, you need to change that. We are not going to be able to require students starting fall 19 to enroll in those courses, and those courses might disappear in the future. And you have to put it through curriculum process, and that is not going to be resolved in a month. So if you have those courses, this is the time to decide what to do. Please don't hesitate. Contact me. Contact the chairs in the department. Ask for advice. What will be the best course to put as prerequisite? We will gladly help you. We want to do what's best and do it once. Okay? So thank you. I think I'm done. Yeah.
Thanks, Miriam. Hi, I'm Jeff. I teach ESL here, so I'm going to talk about how this impacts ESL. And before I do, I'm happy to say that all of us have become good friends because we've been working on this for 3 years. We were lucky enough to have a grant, this BST grant, that's kind of helped us prepare to do this. And so we always have a joke within my ESL department that when a system, a large one such as a college system, starts something new, you can either be at the table by being invited or inviting yourself, or you could be on the table about to be eaten. So I think we've always been behind the scenes and working on this, and I think that's helped. Okay, so for ESL, it's clear in the law that, which is great, it's that they distinct language acquisition from remediation. So it says here that students who enroll in ESL coursework, they need additional time. Because as we all know, if you're trying to learn a new language, Spanish or Chinese, yes, we can do the most we can to try to accelerate you, but there's also a time factor. That's just going to take you time to get through it. So when we talk about all this great success rates and put everyone at a transfer level course, that assumes they have native-like fluency. Not all of our students, being open access, have native-like fluency because you can be off the street and you don't have to have a minimum requirement of a TOEFL test. There is no language test to come into IVC. You could just come in and start signing up for classes. So ESL is a little bit different in that regard. Okay. Also, for AB 705, we should use multiple measures in ESL. And I want to put a caveat as this high school GPA is, I think, going to be wonderful for most students in math and English because I think it has been shown to and will continue to accelerate students more quickly through our basic or our transfer level courses. However, asterisk for ESL, high school GPA for our program is a little bit problematic because of our program of 2,000 students, 20% came from high school. So what about the other 80% where there is no GPA? And of the 20%, when the state and everyone did their research on using high school GPA as a measurement, they looked at students with 4 years of high school only. So that basically means students that were born here, or maybe you're a California learner, you're generation 1.5, who maybe came here and had all 4 years of high school instruction in English, they're pretty proficient in English. But what about those students that came over as sophomores or juniors or seniors, maybe from China or some other country? How are they going to succeed? And so that might not apply to our program, so we have to look at other models. So right now we're piloting a language survey, a self-placement survey cannot replace perhaps our legacy like multiple choice tests. Also we're advocating at the state as well, maybe include a writing sample. So for ESL, currently it says, for math and English it says no assessment. For ESL we're still kind of navigating through that because it's a little bit trickier when you add the language acquisition factor. Okay, so what are we going to do? What's nice as well is we kind of got ahead of the game, and I think I was here about 3 years ago talking about our credit program, how we redesigned that, and we have to redesign it probably again. Job security, I guess. So we talked about our new resigned ESL credit program and our new non-credit program, and we'll continue to make both those programs sort of homogeneous and educational goal. And so we're looking to kind of shrink our credit program and make that thing all academic. So can we shrink maybe that sequence, redesign it a little bit, and also as Deanna talked about a writing co-rec for writing 1, can we make an ESL co-rec for writing 1 as well? So instead of burying them in basic skills, can we maybe shrink in that a little bit more, add a co-rec ESL support to help students at the transfer level? So we're going to be looking into that, more to come later. Also continue to support the non-credit program. So if we have students in our credit program, but they really don't need credit academic instruction, will they be better served in a non-credit program, which will make more programs more homogeneous and also include our percentages as well. And my last slide is just want to show you some data. And I saw Summer Serpis today. I don't know if she showed me. Are you wearing the shirt, Summer? It's just a picture. And can you tell me what the picture says? It says, talk data to me. And I think everyone in our English faculty and ESL faculty should get one of these shirts, and people in humanities as well. Chris is like shaking his head down here. Yes, we believe in data as English composition folk. And here's our data. And so here's our old program. We talk about throughput, right? Throughput's the #1 thing. And so when 3 years ago when we redesigned our program, ESL 81, that was 2 levels below. ESL 380 was 3 levels below. We didn't have a 1 level below. Our throughput rate in blue there was 43%, and now our throughput rate for 2 levels below is 63%. So quick, I don't know, math, is that a 40%, 30% increase overall? But we have improved our throughput rates, which is nice, and hopefully those will continue to improve. The problem with ESL, though, is when we look at throughput and we look at people who attempted writing 1, we still have learners in our program who never want writing 1. So we might have students in our program that are taking academic English because they already have a degree, and they want to improve their TOEFL score to get into a master's program. So they take our courses, they improve their English, they leave, they get accepted to a master's program, but that will not show up here in the numbers and will hurt our numbers. Or people that are taking our courses because they want to improve their writing and reading ability at their job and do that, but they already have degrees. That being said, we want to make sure that we show that our program is doing well, and it is as well because our students are pretty gritty, and I know throughput's important, but we do have hardworking students. For those that do attempt writing one, no matter where you are in our sequence, about 92, 93% of them do pass, and they pass with a B+ average grade. And so the ESL program does a great job I think, of supporting and developing those students ready to pass their writing one, and we are concerned and look at a throughput rate, and hopefully we'll make that increase and continue to do that in the near future. Thank you. And now Robert will come talk about Spanish.
I don't know about the Spanish part, but I will tell you I'm happy to be over here so I'm not in the middle of the PowerPoint anymore. Felt like everyone was staring at me. All right, so you're probably thinking, okay, AB 705, what's going on? So obviously huge changes for counseling, right? I would actually say no on that. I would say what it does is it kind of puts a light on one of the main philosophies we have in counseling and probably the importance of kind of one of the approaches we take in counseling. And that would be that first bullet there, just kind of looking at the holistic counseling. So I say holistic counseling, you say, great, you gave me a general term and you're not going to define it right, and I'm going to have no idea what you really mean from that. Well, I am going to operationally define it. So what we're talking about here is that we take the psychosocial aspect of the students that come into every counseling appointment to our college. So the external environmental issues, stressors, lack of support, difficulties, and how that's affected their thinking, their development. That's a huge aspect of like the holistic counseling. The other two pieces being what they want to do career-wise and having an actual idea of what that major is that leads to career. Because I always use the analogy of walking in a forest. If you're walking in a forest and you're just kind of randomly walking, how do you walk? You're kind of walking slow. You don't really know what's going to be past the next tree line. You don't really know kind of where you're going. And that's students that are undecided in school right now. They are going through classes, but they're not committed as much because they don't know where this is leading. They're kind of trying to figure it out. But when you have an idea on your path, and let's call it a map, when you have your map, when you have your actual path that you're following, you walk a little bit kind of quicker. You walk with a little bit more vigor because you know where you're going. And that's what we talk about with that career side, trying to figure out as early as possible what that major, which of course is going to hopefully lead into their potential and future career, and getting that solid and stable so they have an idea. Although I know most college students change their major, but at least at the beginning, having an idea what that major is and kind of getting us on a pathway and then figure it out from there if it does change. And then the last piece, of course, being the academic piece. What are the actual courses they're going to take? And a lot of that depends on, of course, what they're bringing in as far as need for English and math, whether it's a co-rec or not, and then also kind of those support courses around it. So again, I'm bringing all this up to kind of tell you that it really highlights one of those major philosophies in counseling of holistic counseling and being able to take the time to be able to work with the student and not just have a piece of paper, here, great, you're a psychology major, there you go, see you later. It's the idea that, okay, great, you're a psychology major. What else is going on? What support do you have? Where are you coming from? When was the last time you took a math class? Oh, how did you do in that English class in high school? And be able to use that information to really help us advise the student on what is best for them first, second semester, and ultimately their whole time here at IVC. So that's important. And when we look also at looking at the high school coursework through guided self-placement, the one thing that we've brought up a lot and have actually talked a lot with our high school partners is especially on the counseling side, is kind of how they're promoting and working with students too. Because we really get two different types of students in general. We have the students that are taking kind of math all 4 years, and that's promoted a lot at the high school. But we have another set of students who kind of know, hey, I'm going to go to community college. I'm going to kind of meet what I need as far as a math requirement is said to get my degree. And a lot of times that's 2 math courses. So a lot of times they're done with math, maybe sophomore, junior year, and it's been about a year for them to take that they haven't taken math, and being able to recognize that. So yes, looking at their high school GPA, their last math course, but also as the counselor asking, hey, when was the last time you took that Algebra 2 class or that pre-cal AP stats, whatever it is, and being able to kind of keep that in mind and being able to really, I don't want to say like talk students into, but really kind of help them see the need and the reason on taking a support class when maybe it's kind of just recommended and not strongly recommended. And that's going to be a lot of what the counselors are going to be working to do. And of course, Angel's done a great job working with our partners in math, English, and ESL to kind of figure out, like, how does that happen? What should the counselors be doing? And kind of us working together kind of figure a lot of that out. And then probably one of the biggest things, I'll be honest with you, that stresses me out is how our advisement piece is going to change. Because, and advisement's, of course, what students have walking through the door through the matriculation process. And Arlene's going to talk a lot about just the matriculation process in general. But that one piece that kind of counseling owns within the matriculation process is advisement. So it's just the fact that, honestly, students can actually probably enroll in classes without ever seeing anyone on the campus is a little scary to me. And I say that because what's going to happen is with guided self-placement, that could be done online. Orientation can be done online. Advisement could be done online. And we need to figure out how to get that face-to-face with students. And we need, especially for the incoming freshmen and those reentry students that have been out of school for a while, we need to figure out how to get more face time, maybe through the advisement process, and probably most importantly, make that advisement process something meaningful and fruitful. And me and Angel have talked about this a lot with some of the other counselors in challenging ourselves on how we take that approach and asking some maybe more uncomfortable questions as it comes to counseling is, are we taking the best approach to this? If we have 2 hours with a student, like what should we be focusing on and what is kind of the meat we want them to walk out with that kind of advisement session. So that is something we're actively working on, and of course working with our partners in all disciplines, especially ESL, math, and English, to kind of figure out what they need walking in the door here at IVC. And then the last piece I'm just going to talk about is just that I think as non-English ESL math faculty, we need to remember that there is going to be a bit of a shift that potentially happens here with enrollments. And we need to maybe be a little bit more prepared for that. Because as it was brought up with these co-requisites that the students are going to take, the support courses, for our students that are in need of both sets of support, they're going to pretty much be close to, if not at 12 units with just the math and English. And when ESL comes into play, ESL. So we need to remember that, okay, we have basically 2 courses we're focusing on. What are we also going to develop into there, making sure that we're looking at that and working together on what makes sense for that student. Is it a major course? Is it a counseling course? Is it a general ed course? And how that kind of works. And that goes all along with everything we're doing with guided pathways too, and trying to figure out that first and even first year kind of approach to that student. All right, so I think you're done hearing me talk, so I will go hand it over. See, I only had 1 slide, condensed.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the matriculation process and what that entails. To set the table a little bit, I think it's important to understand how many admissions applications we accept. We'll accept 12,000 applications, typically for a fall semester, and upwards of around 28,000 admission applications annually. So changing these onboarding processes is a little daunting at best. So the current process is a student, submits their admissions application based on the information they tell us. We sort them. You're required to matriculate, you're not. If you're required to matriculate, here's the steps you've got to take. The assessment is the one thing that we do in person. Currently, students are required to take both math and English to complete matriculation. They take either a paper and pencil test or a computerized test. So we offer the CTEP for English. We offer the SLEP plus an essay for ESL, and then Miriam mentioned our homegrown math test. That's also offered by paper or computerized. So in the summer of 2016, the English department began piloting the use of multiple measures, in other words, high school placement. We started using the disjunctive model, so students received their highest placement based on either the assessment they took on the CTEP or high school performance data. In the fall 2016, math followed suit, and so then we would use, again, both measures to determine. One of the things that we've learned in that in the last 2 years is that and how it works is I'll back up. How it works is the student comes in, takes the assessment, we notify research picks up the file, bounces it against CalPAS data, sends back the results, whether or not a student received a multiple measures placement. Matric staff upload the file, placement shows up for students, and then we manually add in the multiple measures placement. So it's a very collaborative effort between the two offices to make that happen. But the lessons learned are that we know that CalPAS data is incomplete sometimes. Occasionally, it could be that the high school districts haven't done their reporting. So we'll have students bring in their high school transcript and we go, oh, it doesn't match what we got out of CalPAS. And so we'll adjust placement based on that information. So as we stated earlier, colleges are required to stop assessing in fall 18. So we're required to do that sometime this semester. But what do we do in its place? So essentially, I should back up. We're required to stop math and English assessment fall 18, ESL fall 2019. As you can see right now, there's a lot of automation behind the current processes. It takes a lot of that automation to actually process 28,000 students so they are at least eligible to enroll. So we have a short-term and a long-term solution. So in the short term, we're thinking about having students come in and using the guided self-placement tools that the faculty have developed, walking students through what the guided self-placement is, and we'll be working very closely with counseling. Counseling will be participating in these as heavily. Because we feel like you talk about the risk-taking. This is a risk. We want to see where the students place themselves. So we want to capture the data where their recommended placement is, and then what their behavior is. We're hoping that this short-term solution will help guide us to the longer-term solution, which will be all the automation. There's been a district design team formed. The district IT is good at doing this kind of thing. It involves Saddleback and Irvine Valley, both staff, faculty, and managers, administrators, to help design what will the new process look like in the long term. How will we automate some of these things, and what kinds of things will we need to develop? And we have to work that out with our Saddleback colleagues. Okay, so with that, I think we're ready for questions and answers. Well, clearly you did a good job.
I think we're going to ask if folks have questions. There's actual microphones in the back. If you can go there so then everyone else can hear that as well, right? Or are we passing around mics? Yeah, okay. So I got Kathy over by one of the mics, and then there's another mic over on the other side as well. Yeah, Kathy?
I'm just being a good citizen, breaking the ice.
Thank you.
So many of us are in disciplines other than math and English, or it's actually the writing curriculum, not all of English. But students need to be able to read, write, and do arithmetic, if not actual honest-to-goodness math, to succeed in our classes. Sometimes not at the level where we would use as a prereq a college-level course. There are certainly classes where you need a college-level course as a prereq, but there are others where you need to be ready for college, for example. And we used to be able to have prereqs like that and can't, or won't be able to soon. Will there be, I understand we may be able to have workarounds in some cases, but more than that, will there be any way to get supplemental instruction in an organized way beyond just the tutoring center for those sorts of people who just need that extra little step to be ready for their non-English, non-math classes that they need? I'll give you a dumb example. My class, students need to be able to do simple probability, which means they basically need to be able to add fractions, multiply fractions, and interconvert fractions and decimals. They don't need the rest of Math 253. They don't need the rest of that. They just need that. But sending them over to the tutoring center after they've already not succeeded is kind of too late.
Fine.
We're all friends here.
Is it on? Okay. So, Kathy, I remember many, many years ago when actually people from your department came with exactly the same question. And the math department developed the math modules. We had to stop offering them because the students were not enrolling. We never go to the minimum enrollment for those courses. We can talk about it. It's outside of the AB 705 problem. We can talk about it, include the office of the VPI, see what to do, because we provided as a department a solution. Oh yeah, in the 7th week, we need students to know how to do percentages. They can take the 4th week, the half-unit module on percentages, and those classes never failed. So.
I appreciate them. I'm standing right next to Goldner. I remember the history. And so this is a combination of, because I could have made my example about writing and reading just as much. My students can't read the way they need to read for a science class. It's the same problem. I could have used that as an example. And I think this is one of those places where broad conversation among disciplines with math, writing, and math faculty, writing math faculty, and counselors is really important because the students need to be warned before they fail or before they fail to succeed, not after they've already dug themselves into a ditch.
I think this is a good conversation, but not in the context of AB 705. This is something that we can get together, the programs that say that we will benefit from bringing the modules back.
And maybe that's not, maybe the modules isn't the way to do it, but something. Yeah. Anyway, outside of
Can I add something too? I also think that AB 705 offers us the opportunity, I'm going to say, to rethink our curriculum across campus. So one of the things that I think is going to be important for us as an English department is to think about the Writing Center. And can we offer things in the Writing Center that might be able to serve these students in some ways? But I mean, those might be students who haven't even attempted an English class yet, especially if it's not a prereq. They might be entering other classes and they haven't seen us yet. But I do think it is something across campus we should be aware of. You might be seeing students with different skill sets than you may have in the past, and that's going to be important for all of us in terms of how we think about how we can best serve the students that we have in the seat in front of us.
course, it's all the R's. And there's the discipline or technical level type of reading and writing that's not the same as what we typically get in our reading and writing classes. We've been engaging these conversations obviously for forever, but I just wanted to bring it back up and also raise the guys' I do applaud what you all are doing, and so this is not meant as a complaint, this is meant as an extension.
So I have a quick question also now. I appreciate what you're doing with the math and the English and the support courses. I see that's very needed. But the question is, we're also supposed to get these students out of here with 60 units. So if you're increasing the number of units like this, how's that going to affect that maximum number of units they're supposed to take? And then how are they going to be able to pick up their extra courses in that first semester? That's the impact, it seems to me, the math and English with all the extra courses, support courses, and yet we've got them on a program to be able to get them out of here in 4 semesters. So I'm a little concerned with that as to how that's going to be affected.
The student will be taking let's say the worst case scenario, if a 5-unit math course with a 2-unit correct support course, that's 7 units, instead of up to 13 if they had started 3 levels below transfer. So yeah. Now, so basically we are in the 2 units of curriculum support, both math and English, but they are going to be taking less classes, less units to complete their math and English requirements. Now, I want to emphasize that it's going to be a group, might be small group or big, I don't know, that will be needing the curriculum support in both courses. And yes, I agree, for those students, picking up a class in another area might not be possible for the first semester.
And just to add to, I think we've had this discussion in terms of advisement as well. And it might be important for that student to take one co-rec class their fall semester and then the other one their spring semester, so they can pick up some major units if they want to do that, or you do other courses as well.
Yet if they do take that math and that English, those courses with those co-rec support their first semester, then hopefully when they get to the biology class or other courses as well, they've had both those under their belt, versus maybe now, for some courses at least, maybe putting off those basic skills and taking care of them later in the semester or not at all.
And the correct model is all for the students who were traditionally in the remedial sequence. So if you look at the complete remedial sequence, it's actually fewer units. For all the students who are directly placed into transfer level, it doesn't change. That not every student for writing 1 has to take the correct. That's only the correct is for the students who traditionally were placed below that. So the student who directly places into writing 1, there is no unit increase.
And to add just real quick on what Loris mentioned as well, when this is for the students that previously took remedial units, one of Miriam's points earlier of us still offering the math challenge, right? We know all students automatically are going to have the option to place that first level transfer with co-rec support, but we have plenty of students that start at above transfer level math. Those students still have the option of taking the math challenge to see if they'll start at Calc 1. If you will. We'll guarantee that they start at first level, but a lot of our students, based on their math background, are going to take the challenge so they can start 2 levels above transfer like they have been anyway. So I think just to emphasize, it's a subset of the students that were taking the developmental courses before.
And I also want to add that the 2 units of the curriculum support courses are basic skills. They are 300 level courses, so they will not count against the units for degrees or certificates. Yeah.
And then I'd just like to add that the other thing is too, it's kind of from an advisement standpoint on what approach you want to take. Like if a major's more math focused or math heavy, let's say, it was brought up with the bio example, for example, we may focus that student to take math first and maybe wait if that is a concern on the writing 1 semester, or vice versa. If it's more of a writing intensive type major, then we would look at that too. So again, it all comes down to each individual student, the holistic approach and looking at it, kind of seeing what our faculty partners inside of these disciplines, but also outside of these disciplines, really feel is going to be the most important thing for them to do.
Okay, hi. Mine is more discipline specific than the other questions here. In our research methods class, which is Psych 2, we have a Writing 1 prerequisite, and that's not going to affect, this is not going to affect any of that. My question though, Miriam, maybe you're the best one to answer this question, but as far as revising the curriculum for our Psych 10, which is our statistics, we do have a prerequisite for the 253 that they've passed it or have taken it and successfully completed it. So what is the language on curriculum revisement when we're getting ready for next year? This has to be done now. So instead of having Math 253, what do we do?
I have bad news for you because
I know, passing Writing 1, but how do we justify that? Because if they, logically I'm kind of fitting this into place. If they've passed Writing 1, then they would have probably most likely successfully completed the other parts of it, which would make them successful in our stats class. But then how do you justify a Writing 1 prerequisite?
Yeah. You know, and this is the other thing, which at some point, I did send all of you an email a long time ago, but I don't know if you were the chair at the time. These courses are equivalent to Math 10. They are first level transfer courses. The students have the right to go into them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that
Yes.
econ management psych, let's get a meeting as soon as possible. So we
Right.
had to decide how to handle it because the 253 per rec is gone.
Yeah.
And the courses being equivalent to Math 10, those are first
Right.
level transfer courses
'Cause I think,
affected by
I-
AB 705.
Similar to what Bob was saying, I mean, there's sort of somewhat conflicting goals. I mean, I'm all for this. I think it sounds great for helping students be successful, but there's two goals that sometimes crash into each other. One is having students' rights to take classes that are available to all students, and then the other one is having them be successful. So having a prerequisite for a class is, in our intent, of course, is to have them be successful. So now what? I think those conversations do need to, to happen in order for have our students be most successful in our classes to start with. Because even students who have passed that, we have difficulties in sometimes the basic formulas that we use, in that class. So,
Let's
obviously.
put a meeting together where the concerned areas talk
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, and addressing the language that's going to be acceptable, at the final state level for that course. Right?
You know me, shoot me an email.
Okay, I will.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we'll meet. All right, thank you. Yeah.
We'll go ahead and do another question. Just a reminder, we are coming up on time as well, so maybe we have time for one more, maybe two questions at most.
Hello, excuse me, hello. Since we're now going to be using high school transcripts exclusively for placement, if we're seeing trends of students not being successful, will that data go back down to the high schools? And will there be accountability on that front, kind of reflecting that the high schools need to do a better job in terms of base transfer preparation?
So short answer is yes. We already have a very good relationship with especially Irvine Unified. I'm in constant contact with them. Their math chair there constantly asks for data on how their students are doing. I know definitely math, and I think the district as a whole is very interested in those. And yes, AB 705 has two measures that we have continually to look at, and if it truly is that our current system is severely handicapping students so that we see, single-digit success rates, then yes, it is an iterative process of where we have to potentially adjust. However, all the research from other community colleges, from San Diego and others who have already done that, have shown that the big red flags are not the case. There might be minor adjustment, but the large success seems to be trumping for most students.
We got time for one more question? Yep.
Okay, I'm halfway done with the Math 10 corrects, so I want to invite Econ 10, Psych 10, and what else is 10? Management 10, to come to our math meeting, because I'm going to present the half that I've done. So you guys can come in and input whatever the heck that you want in there. It is in good shape. So I will do that tomorrow. So you'll see it, and then we'll talk.
Ignore. Students cannot enroll in our prerequisite courses because students in Psych 10, for example, they cannot enroll in our prerequisite courses.
I do understand. I'm willing to give them what I got.
They can write their own corrects?
They can change whatever the heck they want. But I'm doing them, and I might as well share it with them, and then they can add or subtract whatever they want. But I want them to come and look at it. It's in good shape. So send somebody, Management 10, Psych 10. So what time is our meeting? 8 o'clock. Okay, be there. B118.
Okay, well, let's thank this star panel. Absolutely terrific job, and we're going to have a lot more dialogue, as you can tell, as this spreads out through the campus community. Thank you so much. That was terrific.